Hello, and welcome to the Tenfold AI podcast. I'm Heather Snyder, joined by Matt Scanlon, who is today wearing sunglasses because he's a bit under the weather, watery eyes, cold symptoms. It's winter time in the Midwest. That's what we get. This podcast is sponsored by ProMode.ai. ProMode is the only end-to-end marketing platform powered by AI and specifically built for B2B companies in the mid-market to completely replace the need for a digital marketing agency or a robust internal team, pumping out 125 unique pieces of content a month, posted directly from the platform, all for a flat fee that is 73% less than the standard marketing agency scope of work. Hi, Matt. How you doing?
I am doing well. I have been better, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, your eyes were a little watery. The sun from your window was getting in the eyes and you were kind of struggling. I said, just put some sunglasses on.
Yeah, it all started with New Year's Eve. We were staying with our nephews and they have cats. And I'm like deathly allergic to cats. And it's been a downhill ever since then.
Wow.
But
Fun.
well worth it. We played a lot of Fortnite and Mario Kart and stuff like that. So I'll take the allergies.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's kind of like on trend to wear sunglasses during a podcast. I'm seeing it more and more. One day when I'm cool, I'll do it too.
Yeah. But
I don't know.
you do like really bring the quarter zip energy. And I love the branded quarter zip today. Well done.
Yeah. Well, you have noticed my quarter zip no repeat game is pretty strong.
It is zero.
You know, if you're going to live in the Midwest, you got to have a robust sweats collection, sweatpants, sweatshirts, and I'm bullish on sweats from an investment standpoint. My sweats portfolio is strong.
Strong buy signals for the sweat.
Strong. But I love the quarter zip, because you can kind of breathe a little, you can kind of like let it loose. And I feel like for Zoom calls or video calls during the day, it's just a bit more together than just a standard like a hoodie or something.
Yeah.
But it's still comfortable and I feel like I'm like beating the system when I wear.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah, cool. Well, enough about the weather and our allergies and all of that. Let's get into some AI news. I know you've been sort of ear to the ground on a couple of things, ChatGPT, some interesting things that I think will transition nicely to a marketing conversation, talking about personas of people who are using these AI chat interfaces. I haven't heard this info from you, so I'm super excited to hear about it and see how the conversation flows. So what do you got?
So it kind of came from last week. We were talking about the release of OpenAI announced the release of their O3 model, which after we talked about it, I was wondering why I wasn't super excited for it. And furthermore, when OpenAI released one, the first thing that I did is I went into all of our agent pipelines that we use for ProMode. And I immediately started testing on O1 because okay, well, let's see what the output looks like this for our use case. And really found that in 90% of the cases, I did not like the performance of O1 over some of the other LLMs that we had used. And so you would think, well, it's an upgraded model. It's got a higher context window. Why would you not upgrade some of these LLMs that we're using? We're able to use O1 as an entry point to some of our agent workflows, but by and large, it just didn't perform. So I was trying to figure out why is this? And where I landed on is I'm getting the feeling that with these model releases, the predictability of the model will be more important than the performance metrics. So that to me says that we're reaching this tipping point in these model releases where there's no, and then back up to we've used 3, I've used 3.5. This is on the OpenAI side of things, 3.5 turbo. So I've tested all of these. Each new release was a significant improvement in output over the last. up until O1. And the reason I didn't find it to be higher performing is because it was less predictable in its output. So I couldn't really control how things performed as they were going in there. And so then that got me to thinking, who are the people that they're building this for? Because I really did feel like with the last two releases, they performed very highly on mathematics and coding. I even did some testing with coding. They performed phenomenally. But where they do a really good job is in the sort of retail passerby. It's like I got my mom using ChatGPT over Christmas, and she tried out O1 and it worked perfectly, helped her plan a vacation to, I think, Spain or wherever she wants to go. But then I started thinking, okay, if these LLMs, if these AI companies want to become the utility provider of AI technology, they need to appeal to a very broad audience. If you recall, when Google Fiber came to Kansas City was the pilot program for Google Fiber, and Google Fiber was giving away free gigabit internet. At first, it was super cheap. I mean, we're still paying the same amount that we were paying in 2012 for Google Fiber. And that's because Google's only intention was to get gigabit speed fiber internet across the United States so that they could store the data in it. They never intended to make money off of the actual Google Fiber product. They just wanted to store all the data when Time Warner, AT&T, when all of these other providers moved over to fiber internet. So that brings me to, there's like kind of two personas of retail AI users. The first person is they know what they want and they know how it should look. They have an opinion on the quality of the output. And the second person knows what they want and they're just happy to not have had to do that by hand. Okay. So let's use an example. Let's use this planning a vacation as an example. If you are really particular on how you like to go on vacations, you want to be in a city that is walkable, that has this type of food, that has live music, that has, let's say, what else would somebody want? A beach, things like, you got a specific time of the year that you want to go. There's a temperature change that you want. You have like a really strong idea of what you want that vacation to be. Your prompting, like your chain of thought prompting that you use to plan that vacation, will be very different than the other user persona for these tools. The other user persona is somebody who says, I want to check this thing out, plan me a vacation to Cancun, Mexico. And they're just so amazed that this thing is planning a vacation for them. They just kind of accept the output in the way that it is. Now, translating this to ProMode, somebody could go into ChatGPT and say, build me a marketing campaign for a commercial roofing company. It will spit out a marketing campaign for a commercial roofing company. And that's pretty phenomenal. Like that's a lot of work done in a short amount of time. And that person may just copy and paste directly out of ChatGPT, probably not read every word that came out of it, copy, paste, send, boom. But then eventually somebody's going to look at that who has a strong attachment to the output, to the qualitative aspect of the output. And so if you care about the qualitative aspect of the output, all of a sudden these huge context windows start to seem really, really small. And to now chain together multiple LLMs. Now you're getting into this agentic workflow where you have specialized agents who handle hyper-specific tasks, pass their output on to the next agent who handles that very specific task in a very specific way. And so bringing all this back around to the new model releases, I think we're hitting this tipping point where the out of the box solutions will not cut it any longer for a meaningful business use case. I think as they release newer and newer models, those will appeal to the pedestrian users who are not going to read the output of what comes out. It's just going to get copy and pasted, thrown into an email, and they don't care about the output. Eventually, the line will care about the output, in which case somebody will need to begin to build an infrastructure for these specific use cases, which is what ProMode is. So now bringing this kind of all around to the death of SaaS.
Well, real quick, before we get into that, kind of rewinding back to the beginning of your commentary there, you mentioned that 3.0 was not performing as well as you had hoped. What made you think that? And what would a better outcome have looked like? Like, what were your expectations and how did it not meet those expectations?
So, on a technical level, when I would test out these models, I would go in there and I would basically just copy our agentic pipelines, and then I would swap out models. And so it's fairly easy to do. You're just changing an API key in there from, I think let's say I was using 4.0 for about 90% of one pipeline. So then I swapped 4.0 out with 0.3, the upgraded version. Or I'm sorry, this would have been 0.1 because 0.3 is not released as of the recording of this to use via API. So I swapped that out with 0.1, no improvement in output. So I would get my output and then I would test that against a client's vector database. And I would look for how closely associated is this output with what the client has told us is important to them. And it would rank significantly lower, which led me to believe that our top priority should be predictability instead of whatever they're calling performance. Like, calling performance is like speed, context window, processing power, performance on math tests, and things like that. For the end user who is actually going to take this content and use it to represent their business, predictability is their primary goal. They don't really give a shit what the model is that's behind it or how powerful it is. At the end of the day, we have this vector database that represents what is important to a client. And if the output is not a reflection of that database, I would consider it a poor performance in that test.
Okay, I think this is making sense. And how I'm hearing that is consistency or predictability is more desirable than random strokes of genius, especially if you have an end user who may not be able to identify those random strokes of genius if they are not a deep expert in that field.
Exactly. And for a model, so if they were to release a model that would perform better than one of our agentic pipelines, the context window for that model wouldn't need to be 40% greater. So like, let's say that 0.3 is, I think, 25% better, like 25% more context window. It wouldn't need to be 25% greater context window. It would need to be like a 400% increase in context window, because we are chaining multiple LLMs inside of the same agentic pipeline that serves one function, and that function is to deliver content that reflects what's important to the client. So for a model to perform the way that, like, let's say 4 fine-tuned LLMs strung together in a pipeline, like, that model would have to be so much more powerful that I don't really see another LLM release becoming that powerful. So it really leads me to believe that we're hitting this tipping point where the model performance, as far as meaningful output that a business could use, is reaching a tipping point where people will need to start building the infrastructure for using these things for very specific use cases, as opposed to this one model out of the box gets you a thing that you would put your stamp of approval on. There's a major gap. You know what I mean? There's just such a gap between the response you get in a chat window from an LLM and something that you would publicly put out. You know what I mean? And this really came to me as we were, just with ProMode internally this week, we hit a critical mass of you and I putting out enough content to where we can now use our own content to power some of these pipelines. And I'm talking, we had to get probably 10 hours of recorded transcripts of you and I talking, plus another 20 hours of recorded transcripts of you talking with prospects and clients. That's like hundreds and thousands, probably millions of words that finally got us to that point. And there's just no single model that I think will ever be able to handle that level of context.
Mm.
So I think we're now entering into this true like service as software economy where a software company now is in the business of stringing together these agentic pipelines that have hyper-specific use cases that are checked against client preferences before publication.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, from a marketing agency background standpoint, that just can't be overstated how crucial the client approval step is. Because I know within marketing agencies before AI, or I don't want to say before AI, because we've talked about how AI has existed for a few decades already. But before AI chat interface accessibility, before OpenAI and these tools, marketing agencies, one of the biggest struggles was getting client approval because the agency could have the best idea in the world, the best content strategy, the best, social posting calendar for the client to approve and sign off on. But no matter how good it was, it's never going to see the light of day if the client doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And in the world of B2B, where it's usually more conservative, companies are a little more cautious about what they post and what they publish for many, many reasons, many of those very, very valid reasons, some of it being sort of fear and maybe they should take a little more risks in their marketing. But that's just typically not the temperament of the B2B business owner. And it's been very difficult for agencies to meet that business owner where they are. And it's not abnormal for that client to experience very long approval processes, meaning multiple revisions, back and forth emails, delays in content publication to the tune of weeks or months for up to a year at a new agency. So if you just think of like the sunk cost involved in paying an agency to do things that you don't like, that you have to revise, that, need multiple rounds, add to the timeline within that 1 year, you're spending too much money. You're publishing almost nothing, certainly not enough to move the needle, right? So the ability for us to create AI content that first meets the client's expectation, meaning high likelihood of approval instantly. And we've seen that. It's been fascinating and quite honestly very surprising to see how few client revisions and edits we've seen with our client base. And many of these being clients who never liked anything from an agency or were very, very picky for years and years with their agencies or internal teams. Like they know what they like, they know what they don't like. If it's not quite right, they will not publish it. And to have ProMode out the gate being, appreciated and immediately loved by the client is amazing. And that it's on strategy and will be effective for their goals. So it's kind of like the, I want to say Trojan horse, but not really. It's like the value is in it, but the external wrapper of it is also appealing to the client, which is nothing's going to happen if the client doesn't like it.
Exactly. Yeah. We've talked about this a million times. That was the first major change that we made in ProMode's algorithm is our first guess was like, okay, let's optimize for performance. Just straight out the gate, just completely agnostic. Of course, this is what clients would want. And I should know this better. I came to ProMode previously through a project I was working on before this was like building websites with AI. And I learned very quickly that should be optimized for volume. crank out as many iterations as quickly as possible. Don't build the best website. Don't build the highest performing website. Build the thing that could be swapped out a million times in a matter of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You have to pass that test first. And then the secondary optimization strategy can be for performance.
Right. Right. Because we're not selling to robots,
Yeah.
We're not, and that's not our clients and users either. Like nobody's selling to robots today. We're using robots to sell to humans, which is a fascinating undertaking. And you have just blown me away and our clients away with how you've wrangled that into where it is now. But you sent me something, I don't know, a week or so ago, CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella. I think I'm saying that right. It's possible that I'm not. CEO of Microsoft says SaaS is dead, which first I want to just kind of at its face say, that's very interesting to hear from a software company that I don't know what percentage of their revenue is from software products versus their other ventures, but it's got to be a lot. Many of our clients and people we know use Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Dynamic CRMs, and there's a myriad of Microsoft products, Azure, and they make billions of dollars a year off of those software products. And for the CEO to say SaaS is dead, I'm assuming that he's saying that to give investors hope, ironically, hope that Microsoft is leaning into the future and isn't asleep at the wheel and sort of sitting on their laurels of software revenue. And he goes on to say, let's see, he says the intelligence part of these systems, intelligence in quotes, the intelligence part of these systems, the workflows, decision-making, and automation will shift to the AI agents, collapsing the individual value proposition of isolated SaaS tools.
Sure.
So he's talking about agentic AI, which, it's the sandbox we're in with ProMode. He's talking about increasing performance and increased client expectations of software. So I don't know, what's your read on this? All kind of levels. What's the first things that kind of pop to mind?
So I think it would be important to provide a little bit of educational context behind what is going on here. So when he says SaaS is dead, okay, there's an acronym called CRUD as it pertains to software. So CRUD is create, read, update, delete. So if you imagine a software application is basically spreadsheets. So think of a spreadsheet. A cell, content inside of a cell can be created. You can read that content on the front end of your application. You can update that cell or you can delete that cell. So when you work in anything like we use Pipedrive for our CRM, each time you click a button, type something in, that is effectively represented by a spreadsheet behind Pipedrive. And so you are taking a CRUD action on each cell that is behind Pipedrive. Now, Pipedrive or any app, I don't want to call out because we love Pipedrive. So I don't want to, but we'll talk about HubSpot. We talk plenty of shit on HubSpot. We'll use them as an example. So the thing that when you are paying for HubSpot, what you are paying for is to not be interacting with a spreadsheet. Okay. Just effectively, you are updating a spreadsheet behind the scenes. And all SaaS is, every new SaaS is a more creative way for you to update a spreadsheet without having to know formulas, without having to read through all of the spreadsheets. And you know what I mean? Like if you've ever done, I am terrible at using Excel. It's awful.
That's shocking.
Yeah. I mean, it is not my wheelhouse, but that's why I'm so bullish on AI because of this reason. So now, so when you pay for HubSpot, you're just paying for somebody to have done all of the Excel functions for you. and you've got a nice interface on the front end of it to use. So this is SaaS. So everybody's just been paying for somebody else to write their Excel formulas for 25 years now. So now knowing what we
I
know.
never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
but I think you're totally right, because you're paying for a guided journey to organizing your thoughts.
mhm.
And the guided journey, i.e. the user experience, the user interface, you're putting some structure in front of that spreadsheet so that it doesn't look and feel like a spreadsheet.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's fascinating. That makes so much sense. And to formulate the spreadsheet, that's the buttons we click within a SaaS tool. Like,
Exactly.
find this, interact with this, like, the using of the tool in front of you is on the back end really just a spreadsheet formula.
Totally. Yes.
Huh. I
So
never thought of that way.
with SaaS, all of those functions have to be pre-written. And so each button that you would press inside of a SaaS application is just like equals function,
Yeah.
C2 plus X17, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, we don't need functions. We have AI agents that can write these functions in real time. I just need the spreadsheet back there. And honestly, it doesn't need to be that well organized, because these AI agents can read the entire spreadsheet in like almost in runtime, read your entire CRM. If like for us, Pipedrive, if we exported all of that into a CSV and built an agent to like manage all of the functions in that, we could receive all of the same information in a chat interface, and all of those functions would be written in real time. So now all of a sudden, I don't have to look for a SaaS application that has all of the reporting that I like. We've all used tools where it's like, okay, I like this reporting in this one. I don't like this reporting in that one. There's some clunky versions where you can build your own reporting. Now, I mean, we're just now able to get into a chat interface and say, like, what should my target sales goal be for in January? And it spits it out. Here's your target sales goal. Here are so let's say you want to get 10 new deals in January. Your close rate is X percentage. You should interface with this many people in January. And oh, by the way, here are your hottest leads. Here's where I would focus in this order.
Right. And it can do that because that tool has access to a much, much, much larger knowledge base, which is the LLM that's powering the thing.
Yeah.
Right. So with a SaaS tool, like let's take your CRM, for example, all it knows is what you tell it and those functions within it, like how to organize data, make it searchable. Sure, it might have like a help desk function, but even that is really just a mini LLM, like it's a tiny database of frequently asked questions, and you're going in and asking something. Like that's it. It's a very self-contained tool. Whereas Agentic AI, if you were to do the same kind of functions at face value, like organizing data or sales activity, that Agentic AI solution would be able to retrieve information from outside of the SaaS tool to augment the performance, so that it would know what should your sales goal be this month, because it understands things like industry averages and cyclical sales environments. Who knows, like a million other factors. It can instantly research, find, organize, and apply with inference to your situation.
Yep. Let's use your search. I think actually searching inside of a CRM would be a really good example to help highlight this idea. Okay. So if you were to search inside of a CRM for who are my hottest leads right now, in a traditional SaaS, there would need to be a tag or a label that is hot leads. And you would need to apply that label to all of the hot leads based upon whatever criteria you assign to what is a hot lead. When you type in hot leads, it's not doing any inference in traditional SaaS. It is looking for all of the entries that have that label hot lead that you attach to it. Now, let's use that example with an LLM powered CRM. You now get into a chat and you say, I define a hot lead as a lead who is, the deal's not closed. They open every single one of my emails. They, I made some notes in there, or maybe there's a call transcript that would give some sort of indication or language signals towards this being a hot lead. So I don't need to actually have a label or a tag in anything. I can even change my definition of a hot lead month over month. Hot lead may mean something different to you in March after you build more intuition about the sales cycle. And so just simply typing in hot leads, telling a chat bot how you define hot leads in that moment will return a report of all of your hot leads, however you define it. It really does open the door for like real time. I mean, like I said, this technology will really make us more human in our use of technology. Because now all of a sudden, I mean, as you know, in sales, your intuition of whether a lead is going to close or not, it changes month over month. You build intuition on sales calls. You figure out customer personas. You feel it in your gut what this means, but then you have to somehow like cram this gut intuition into a traditional PRUD database, and that intuition will change as you gather more data and intuition. Now all of a sudden we have the ability to where our applications will become more responsive to our gut intuitions. And we can allow those things to change. We can challenge our assumptions. We can modulate how we use these tools and go about our jobs, because we're not forced to use the traditional SaaS. And so like the full expression of your abilities as a salesperson can now be represented in the tools you use to do your job.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then that translates to things like content output, whether that's sales language or marketing language, by delivering content that sounds like you wrote it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's fascinating. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about service as software, software as a service, it's a new term in the zeitgeist. It's kind of hard to tell where it actually originated, but it looks to be coming from investors, that language has been spun up to label full solution, like department solution, agentic AI tools and platforms, to separate them from the SaaS tools that we all know and understand. So I think it's good that there is a separate tool, service as software, but it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, how the understanding of that term is grasped, and what companies grab hold of it and identify themselves as that. We identify ourselves as a service as software platform because that's what it is. There's hundreds of AI agents working in the background to make, the most powerful marketing agency in a box.
Yeah, exactly. We're replacing, how this whole workflow goes. Like we started with, there's a spreadsheet. And so then we realized that a bunch of humans aren't experts in Excel formulas. Cool. We're going to put a SaaS in between that layer to replace the rote, like function writing that needs to go into extracting data from a spreadsheet. And now we are replacing the rote human interactions where we need to attach labels, we need to enter in data, we need to move cards around our CRM, that type of thing. Now that's being replaced by AI agents.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so we're like just slowly moving our way towards, there is really no gap in between a human intuition and being able to represent that intuition with technology.
Yeah. And I mean, it comes with so many challenges. Like as founders in this space, one of the challenges was pricing because there's nothing else to compare. In our case, a marketing full solution in the AI space that's out of the box. There are many, many custom, solutions that are probably similar-ish to ProMode in terms of the back end, how they're built and the methodology. But those custom solutions are priced at a custom, in a custom way. So they don't advertise pricing. So it's very difficult and interesting doing all the research before we arrived at pricing, because there's nothing to compare it to. So I think that will be another thing that's interesting to watch, these various, services, software solutions popping up for all kinds of applications, marketing and accounting and, you name it, operations. How will they arrive at pricing with an out-of-the-box solution that's customizable, but more similar to the buying cycle of a CRM, right? How do you arrive at pricing? And I think, things we thought about were, well, what is the client currently paying? What is our end user currently paying for a similar scope of work with a marketing agency? I kind of used that as a benchmark. We definitely want to save them a lot of money, but it's more than a plug and play SaaS solution, which there's kind of rules of thumb for the pricing of those things. So it's interesting, our own journey and just to watch the market in general,
I think this phenomenon ushers in an era of exceptional customer service and technology, which
I love that.
we could all agree that that has been not a feature of SaaS.
Yeah.
At least for the last couple decades. And so now you're right. There's this new flexibility in pricing because you're not adding up, you're replacing line item in the budget. And it creates this, I think broadly, the era of the VC unicorn is going to come to an end in this realm. And the era of very much customer first, customer focused technology will emerge, because now all of a sudden these non-unicorn services software providers will have the margins of a you've got an AI engineer on speed dial at any given time. What is making adjustments to your model in real time,
Right.
hyper customizations that can be done. It's going to be a really cool time for the end user, in my opinion.
I agree. And those margins will also allow for the hiring of the top minds in those fields. So for us, it will allow for hiring of the top marketing strategists, that we can cherry pick from all the agencies, because we'll be able to pay them far more. Even though our pricing is so much better than a marketing agency, we're scalable.
Yes.
We're scalable to infinity and can service at a very high level. We can afford to pay top minds in marketing to come in and sprinkle some magic over hundreds of clients rather than getting just bogged down in the weeds of day-to-day client work. ProMode is doing all of that. They need only to educate clients, to spiff up strategies, apply some human magic when and where needed. And that's the level of service that's going to make these mid-market clients for us, mid-market B2B companies, it will make them finally be able to tap into not only the quality, but the experience of working with the top enterprise level marketing agency in the world with white glove treatment and great service front to back.
I envision my dream with ProMode is to scale creativity of brilliant minds. I would love to see a world where we are building a fingerprint profile that is designed by a world-class strategist and then tailored to that customer's business. So if you want to have this bold, daring, crass brand that just stands out and is, just wild, you know what I mean? Like a Dollar Shave Club type situation. now all of a sudden that creative director that can build a brand identity like that can be scalable using retrieval augmented generation.
Yeah.
If you
Love
want a
it.
more conservative brand, like, you know what I mean? Now all of a sudden this level of creativity becomes scalable and available to anybody.
I love it. Very cool. Well, that's been the Tenfold AI podcast. I got to jump onto a product demo right now. But thanks for joining me, Matt. I'm Heather Snyder, sponsored by ProMode.ai. Check out our website if you're a mid-market B2B company, or if you are a marketer who's like, I want to work for them one day. Snoop around. Feel free to email us, ask questions, and we'll see you next time.